I'm going to talk about pants, specifically trousers. So this is our standard, our pant sloper here. And I've got the back and the front, so you can typically tell that by your rise right off a glance. The front rise is a little more straight, where the back rise is a little longer, just due to the shape of our bodies. So there are 2 darts here, and that's absolutely fine. But let's say that we want to tone this down a bit. We want to make this 1 dart, and we want to make these 2 darts into pleats rather than darts. So we're going to make a pleated trouser here. The first thing to consider on body is where you want the rise to hit. And I'll talk about how to measure this depth in class if you're not familiar with it already. But we will measure from crotch line up to determine where we want the pant to fit on body. Just remember, these slopers hit already at the natural waist, which is absolutely fine. But it's just something to consider before you go making any changes. So knowing that, you can draw a waistband within the sloper itself, or you can extend these side seams up and create a even taller waistband. But that, just know that that will sit more on the rib cage. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to, like I said, draw my waistband within the sloper. So knowing what you want your waistband height to be, draw that evenly across. And this is always designer's preference. Typically, if you want to be able to fit a belt on the waistband, I would aim for maybe 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. Here on the quarter size slopers, I've drafted out 1/4 inch. So that gives us our waistband as a point of reference. The second thing I'm going to do before I go cutting anything up is I'm going to go ahead and from my pleat or my dart lines create pleat lines. So I'm going to slash to the knee point. Now know that you can slash at least 1 pleat down to the hemline if you choose. But with 2 pleats, like the second pleat, it'll have to only slash to the knee line. Like, it's just adding a lot of, almost a juxtaposed fullness to the hemline. You'd end up with jodhpurs. And if that's not the look that you're going for, I just like to follow this rule. So I choose to slash and spread down to my knee. Okay, so front and back. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut my waistband off. And know that these will still be a high-rise pant. So these are still going to, when finished, come up to the top of the true waist. And our biggest goal here is a contour waistband. So I know we've been talking a lot about contouring. Very important in tops and all things alike, that you want truly fitted to the body. But it's also a great thing to work with when you're talking about pants, especially when it comes to waistbands. So a lot of the times you'll see waistbands that are straight across, which is fine, it's workable, but when you have a contour waistband, the fit is so much more than what it was, just by creating a little bit of a bend in the shape. And with a narrow waistband, you can get away with a lot less curve, a lot less contouring. But if, say you wanted a tall waistband, maybe 2.5, 3 inches, you've got to add some of this curvature into it. Otherwise, you may have a great fit along whatever point along the actual pant leg or part of the body where you've cut from for the rise, but you will have a gaping waistband at the top just because our bodies are not, they're not square. So again, I am just closing up these dart legs here. I'm just joining them together. And I always like to call this kind of a smile. So you can see here that this waistband already starts to smile. And anytime I have a trouser, I like to reduce as much bulk as possible. So to me, that means getting rid of the side seam entirely. So let's just join the waistband here. So you can see this round waistband. You can go ahead and mark center back just so you do not get this confused. And then we'll talk about center front here in a little later. So back to our actual pant legs here. I'm going to measure the width of each dart at the back and then center a single dart in the middle of these 2 points with the width that equals these 2 darts combined. Okay, so we'll say that we have, it's about 3/16 of an inch, so just these little dinky slopers. I'm gonna go ahead and just mark 3/16 of an inch on either side here. And then we do want our dart point, these are level, and I'm gonna go ahead and make this third one level with the 2 that already exist, the dart point. So here's our new dart, and you can cross these off so that you're not doing 3 dart back pant. So our back is almost complete. So now for our front, we want to slash to create pleats rather than darts. And this is just one variation. You could keep the darts, you could do a flat front, which means closing the darts but manipulating the shape. But this is just adding fullness in a different way. It's gonna be a little bit tricky to pivot down here because you got a lot going on. Just gonna give this a little fold in half so that I can get this slash to these pivot points. And if you decide to cut straight through, that's a-okay. I'm just gonna pin in place my center line. This is the grain line that I intend to keep, and then slashing through here. So again, that fullness is just given through the top of the thigh. So here you just need to be mindful of what you want your pleat depth to be, and it will be, every pleat is triple, like whatever you want your measurement to be. Say you want only a 1/2 inch pleat, it needs to be 1.5 inches here. So each pleat width or distance needs to be triple of what you intend on sewing in the end. And then just being mindful, like these dart legs, they do still exist on this here, but you need to think of these as being gone. So when you go to measure the space in between, measure from where these pre-existing dart legs were to figure the math of your pleat width. And then you can tape this in place. Okay, hard part's done. So a couple more things to talk about here. We do want to add a fly closure here. So you've got to get in and out of the pants somehow. It could be a zipper fly or it could be a button fly. Typically with the trouser, you're going to have a zip fly. On most trousers, this zipper length would be anywhere from maybe 7.5 inches to 9. You just have to make sure that your zipper is coming down to the hip line because that's the widest point on our body. There's 2 ways to draft a fly. I'm going to show you a fly extension, which will be 1.5 inches on a full-scale sloper outward. So we're just going to do 1/4 inch because it looks safe on this little quarter-size sloper. So it is truly an extension out. You can see this squared sometimes. I like to round mine. And the zipper, when we go to sew it in, will set here. So that's your fly extension. And just know this can be a separate piece, but then you've got to just include seam allowance on your center front and at the extension itself. So then from there, we've got this figured, and now we want to talk about our overall leg width. So if you wanted to bring your knee out just a bit, you absolutely can make those adjustments now. So knee and at your leg opening. You can consider if you want a tapered leg, if you want a stovepipe, if you want it flared, whatever you want here, now is the time to draft that. I'm gonna leave this as is because I want to add a cuff to my bottom opening, and I wanna show you how to do that. And it's a little more tricky when you've got a cuff on a tapered leg. So I wanna show it to you that way, just so that that's clear, because it's definitely easy to add when you've got a straight leg. Just got one more piece of tape. Okay, so you've got to determine what you want your cuff depth to be. And just a reminder, this is going to be what we want to be our actual like inseam length, outseam length. We want it to hit here on body. But you have to consider, like when we sew this, you actually fold it up, fold it back down, and then you've got this little seam allowance here that then tucks under like that. And that is how we form a clean cuff. Otherwise, you'd be left with a raw edge on your inseam and outseam. So the cuff's a little bit tricky. So you want to know the depth of your cuff. So for this little guy, I'm gonna do 3/8 of an inch. So that's, again, just my, gosh, I probably should have cut that a little bit wider. I'm gonna just go ahead and tape another piece back here. Hopefully I don't need it, but just so we have it. That is my boo-boo. Not a big boo-boo, but make sure you guys have the best visual. Okay. And then whatever this... Hey, Heidi? Okay, so whatever this measurement is would be the amount that you would, hold on.